Hello, traders. Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, Sunday, the 3rd of November, 2024. In this week's video, we'll discuss the S&P 500 closing below its volatility trigger and therefore bearish, while the Qs managed to close above its volatility trigger, though on a shooting star, testing the 50-day moving average, which left us with 2 bullish indicators, 5 neutral, and 13 bearish to start the week. NVIDIA and Sherwin-Williams are being added to the Dow Industrials. Many of you caught that late on Friday after the closing bell. The S&P 500 closed just below its volatility trigger, and hence we are starting off the week with a bearish bias, sitting right on top of the 50-day moving average. RSI turned up, and it may be that semiconductors could help us to start the week as they start the November seasonality, which is usually pretty strong. That said, we want to get back above 57.95 if we are bullish, and we need to pay particular attention to 5700. That is the put wall for now. Therefore, we start off again this week with a bit of caution and looking for these New York FANG index stocks to bounce and render some signals, either bullish or bearish this week. We got the 50-day just below. Again, with NVIDIA being added to the Dow Industrials, we'll see if that has any impact on semis to start the week. While the S&P 500 closed below its volatility trigger, the Qs managed to stay above. It's 2 points above that level, with a smaller segment of the market, only 100 stocks. And with the recent test of the 50-day, we're looking for a bounce inspired by NVIDIA. If it doesn't happen, look for a test again. We definitely want to stay above the volatility trigger and the 50-day this week. Finally, we have the New York Stock Exchange, new highs minus new lows, NYHL, just barely above the zero line going into this week of the presidential election. The New York Stock Exchange still giving us red elder sticks, no sign of turning yet. We at a minimum need to see a blue elder stick. In addition, we have the New York Stock Exchange advanced decline, making a new short-term low, which is being echoed by the S&P 500, mid caps, small caps, and the NASDAQ 100 advanced decline percent. We do see a little bounce on Friday, so we'll look for some direction on Monday morning. But for now, we need to remain cautious and consider selling premium given the strength in the VIX over the last few weeks. Junk bonds lost the 50-day moving average several weeks ago. As such, this is a bearish indicator. As these traders are risk averse, when this asset starts to sell off, you know it's time to take profits and reduce your risk, especially with the strength in the 10-year yield, bullish and trending, with bonds continuing this sell-off and bearish trend. To top it off, we have strength in the US dollar. This looks like it's headed back to the highs, though it could get rejected in this area near 105 if the election goes particularly well, and if we manage to come out of the election and volatility premiums start to drop. Finally, on a more positive note, crude oil and gasoline products have been in this descending pattern, making lower lows and lower highs, which is good going into the holidays, alleviating pressure on consumers' wallets. With most sectors fading, it just appears investors and fund managers remain cautious with a lack of volume and buying interest. We did see some strength in communications, biotechs, which was really unusual, and consumer discretionary, which is a bullish indicator given the strength we saw in Amazon last week. That gives us a bullish indicator out of XLY, XLP. You want to see this rising if you're bullish on the economy and bullish in equities in general. Unlike what we saw back in 2022 when the bear market started, late in 2021, early 2022. This looks nothing like the bear market. On the contrary, there is a possibility we start trending higher into year end and test that 6,000 call wall on the S&P 500. Finally, there are the small caps. All of these faded last week as well, which was one of the main reasons why I decided to do an iron condor on the small cap index, IWM, netting a $300 per contract credit and just looking for prices to stay in this general range right around the 50-day moving average into November 15th expiration. While most of the indices are giving us caution signals, there are a lot of stocks that are actually making headway into new highs, many reporting earnings, and a much more robust list of IBD 50 potential trades, as well as stocks that showed up on scans, with many of these set to follow through this week. Some of these stocks, like Argenix, a Netherlands-based biotech company, did break out last week, moving through highs on elevated volume, breaking out through the buy zone on Thursday on elevated volume. Pay particular attention to earnings for 2024 and 2025. With the company reporting last week, a big beat, 211%. Earnings surprise was 847%. Lohr Holdings, designer and manufacturer of niche aerospace and defense components for the aircraft and defense systems industry groups, noticed the earnings flipping to a profit in 2024 with a bullish trend developing. RS ratings at 97. The stock does report in just over a month. Looking for Lohr Holdings to continue higher. Twilio is back with its cloud-based platform. I would imagine that they're going to see a lot of business in the AI surge. This looks really good. Following through on the breakout. Note where it came from in the 400s. Headed that way. Sure looks like it. Volume picking up. Earnings increasing. Look for Twilio to continue to move higher. I wouldn't buy the high of the day, but if we do see a little dip on Monday or Tuesday, is a potential for a trade in Twilio going forward. Insulet Pod, PODD. Nice flat base, looking for a break into the 250 zone. If it does happen, look for a continuation of this trend. With earnings growing into 2024 and 2025, with insulin reporting at the end of the week. Many of those biotech companies also following through this week. ADMA breaking out back above the 50-day moving average, looking for a retest of recent highs. RSI rising, volume picking up. Stochastics and MACD are set up for ADMA, with the stock reporting on Thursday as well. End of the week. Arista Networks also reporting on Thursday, looking for a bounce. So you have to be really careful in your stock selection. Make sure you're checking stocks that have already reported, like IMAX reporting on Thursday, a big beat, looking for the follow through. What I'd like to see is a little flag build over the next few trading days, but if this does follow through, the volume was well above average going into earnings and on the day the company reported. Lulu has earnings out in December. Looking for this to follow through into the holidays. Volume well above average. MACD shows a bullish trend. Stochastics embedded. RSI showing strengthened trend. Watch for Lulu and consumer discretionary stocks to continue moving higher. Like we saw with Amazon last week, well above average volume. Have an iron condor on this one. Looking for it to stay below 210 and above 180 in the short term. Mobileye reported earnings last week. Looking for a continuation of this trend break back to the 200-day moving average into year end. Mobileye, also a stock we looked at and traded on Friday. Starter position at $13.50. Selling calls, bringing my cost basis down $1.50 at entry. And looking for this volume to continue as we proceed into the Kirby, where less volume was trading in July and August. That'll create less resistance as we look for a retest of the 200-day moving average overhead. In addition, we saw Nextracker following through last week on earnings with a nice beat of 60.5%. The company provides integrated solar tracker and software solutions for the solar projects globally. The stock showing us a nice trend break, looking for it to retest the overhead moving averages and resistance zones between 45 and 50. Nextracker, a stock that I decided to sell some put credit spreads on. If this continues to move higher, I'll probably start buying some shares. The solar industry is doing well in anticipation of a positive outcome from the elections. SkyWest, a seldom talked about airline, continues to trend higher. Most of the airlines looked really good last week with a positive trend in United Airlines and Delta on volume showing up over the last few weeks, breaking the 50-day moving average. 50-day crossed back up through the 200-day moving average on most of these about 3 weeks ago, signaling strength in travel and leisure. Hims and hers from previous watch lists, nice little bounce on Friday at the 50-day. Look for this to continue moving higher. Hims and hers with earnings this week, looking for a positive reaction and for the stock to continue to move higher in the weeks to come. Robinhood with earnings, a gap down, sitting right on the 50-day moving average. Look for this to bounce. If we get a follow through, this might be a nice entry into year end. With biotechs, one of the few sectors that were bullish on Friday, we're looking for many of these stocks like TGTX, TG Therapeutics to continue this breakout and follow through. To continue this bullish trend with the 10 EMA up and to the right, volume looking good, looking for a retest of previous pivots. As the stock proceeds into earnings, and note that it flipped to a profit in 2023 with estimates of a 1,200% increase in 2025. Despite a loss on the current quarter, Starbucks continues to hold the 100 level, looking for a follow-through in a very large cup and handle base with estimates of 2026 being a bullish year. Look for Starbucks to continue to move higher into year end. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from closingprint.com, Sunday, the 3rd of November, 2024. I'll send out a watch list later tonight around 12 midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so be sure to check your inbox for that. We'll start off Monday with a bit of caution. Remember, we got an election on Tuesday, so get out to vote. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care, and we'll see you in the morning. Ciao.